Good morning, everybody. So I want to, I'll lay down some things one more time. Please mute when you're not talking so that we don't get a lot of feedback through the system. And remember to unmute yourself before you start talking so that we can hear you. And I say that because I truly believe that every voice, not only on this screen, but every voice that's associated with, actually just every voice is important and needs to be heard. So please be heard. If you think of something, if you want to say something, even if you're afraid that people are going to disagree with you, this is a safe place. We do not attack each other. We just listen, absorb, grow, be challenged, and because we, at Just As You Are, we believe that truth is found in the conversation. So before we get started, if you want to say this along with me, if you know it, I'm going to start us with our faith affirmation. I am a child of God. I celebrate God's Holy Spirit in my life. I accept God's Spirit and power to inspire me, guide me, and motivate me to be a witness of the gospel, offering hope, showing faithfulness, and sharing joy. So let's dive right in. Last week, we're talking about raising the altitude of our attitude. And so last week we talked about what earthly, we're using Colossians as our springboard, and in Colossians it says, let that which is earthly in you die and focus on things above. And we talked about what needs to die within us so that we can focus on what is above. And so there were a lot of good answers. We talked about ego needs to die. We talked about greed and some of the, but I think the overwhelming consensus was the main thing that needs to die in us to elevate our attitude is fear, because fear tends to be the root of most things that distract us from our better self. And so in Colossians, it goes on to say, above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And that's kind of where we ended, and that's where we're going to begin. What is, in your mind, when you hear the word harmony? For me, I'm a musician, so I have a very definite idea of what harmony and overtones and all that is. In your mind, when you hear the word harmony, what does that mean to you?
It means balance.
Okay.
It means, yeah, that, you know, all the planets are aligned. And it just means that there's peace.
Okay. Anyone else? Josh, were you going to say something?
Sure. I like to, I sort of view it in a musical sense too, but I expand upon that in the sense that, yes, music is a form of vibration. And we universally are all energetic beings. So harmony is when all of the energetic beings are vibrating in a way that they match each other.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in, and if I lose you because I'm doing musical terms, just say, hey, wait a minute, back up. But there's different types of harmony. So like there's a major chord, there's a minor chord, you can have an augmented chord, and in like some of the diminished and the augmented, there is a dissonant tone, which in itself adds to the beauty of the chord. It's like a lot of those rich, beautiful chords that you'll hear in music aren't just your basic root chords. They have a note that, I don't want to say doesn't belong, but has different overlying harmonics on top of it, and it creates a whole new sound. And that, to me, is the idea of love binding all things, whether we think it belongs or not. And in trusting that it's binding all things together in perfect harmony, we then begin to, the voices, like every voice on the screen, I know, I'm looking at faces and I'm going, not one of these people think the same way about life. And so the differences there create, to me, a beautiful harmony when we listen. So I wrote a little note. If we start from a perspective of all things working together in perfect harmony, then things are always as they should be.
You know, when you were talking about harmony and the difference, because I was thinking of the minor and major chords also, but I was also thinking at some time, whatever the dissonance is, blends. You know, you can change whatever that note is or something so that it starts to blend so that it's all oneness again. So when I think about whatever your first question was, I think about the fact that it's all oneness, you know, or that's what the state that we're trying to reach.
The harmony is oneness. Yes, I like that. Do y'all know that there's an old Christian hymn called It Is Well? Some of the words are, when peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul, it is well with my soul. That's the first verse and chorus. I wanted to read, I looked it up on Wikipedia, but I know I've heard this story before, but I wanted to make sure I was telling it correctly. So it was written by a gentleman by the name of Horatio Spafford. And I'm just going to read the Wikipedia entry if that's okay. This hymn was written after traumatic events in Horatio Spafford's life. First were the death of his 4-year-old son and the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, which ruined him financially. He had been a successful lawyer and had invested significantly in property in the area of Chicago that was extensively damaged by the Great Fire. His business interests were further hit by the economic downturn of 1873, at which time he had planned to travel to Europe with his family on the SS, and I'm not going to say this right, Ville du Havre. In a late change of plan, he sent his family ahead while he delayed on business concerning zoning problems following the Great Chicago Fire. While crossing the Atlantic Ocean, the ship sank rapidly after a collision with a sea vessel, the Lochern. All 4 of Spafford's daughters died. His wife, Anna, survived and sent him the now famous telegram, "Saved alone." Shortly afterwards, as Spafford traveled to meet his grieving wife, he was inspired to write these words as the ship passed near his daughter, where his daughters had died. The gentleman who wrote the tune that is so popular with it, Philip Bliss, he named the tune Ville du Havre after the name of the vessel that sank. And if you think about the words of this song, it is well. He'd reached this point where no matter what happened in his life, he chose peace. He chose to believe that, well, in my mind, that God is in still control. The universe is still love, however your faith language would say it, but he chose that it's all going to fit in perfect harmony because love binds all things together in perfect harmony. So the question in my thoughts when I was mulling this over in my mind is, who's in control of my mind? Who's in control of my peace? The next verse right after that in Colossians says, let the peace of the anointed one rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body. Get that harmony theme is still going on. And be thankful. Let the peace of the anointed rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. So then that's where the question came. Who's in control? Who's in control of the peace of your heart? Any thoughts?
Okay, only yourself, no one else. You're the one who has to make the choice for peace.
Okay. You're responsible for your peace. Anyone else? We all agree? We disagree? It's interesting because I thought for sure I'd have somebody would say that it's God or it's the anointed one, but actually in the context of the grammatical context, it's let. In other words, you have to choose to let that in to your life. The word rule in your hearts, the Greek behind rule is brabeo, which means to arbitrate or to umpire. And I just thought that when I was reading that and studying, I went, wow, that's cool, because it's not a matter of, well, an umpire, it's a settlement technique which a third party reviews the case and imposes a decision that's legally binding to both sides. And then I made a note, in baseball, the umpire is the person charged with officiating the game, including beginning and ending the game, enforcing the rules of the game and the grounds, making judgment calls on the plays, and handling disciplinary actions. And to me, does that change if you say, let the peace of the Anointed One umpire in your hearts rather than rule in your hearts? Does that change the way, the responsibility, the way it feels to you, and the way that peace comes into our lives?
When you think of a ruler, that is something that is overbearing and you don't have an option, and you take a passive role. But if I think of an umpire in a game, it's an active. I am playing baseball, or I am doing something, and they are guiding it or interpreting it or facilitating. But a ruler does not facilitate. A ruler demands.
So the umpire guides the players through the game and makes sure that everyone's got a fair chance, I guess. Is that a way?
Yeah, and I think when you think of an umpire, it's more someone who's working with you and trying to make sure everything is like going smoothly. Whereas when I think of a ruler, I think of more like a dictator, like this is how it's going to be regardless of whose feet I step on because I'm pleasing me.
Okay. Josh, you looked like you wanted to say something, or were you just leaning in?
I guess the point of view comes from your experience, perhaps in the past, with who you view as a ruler. In this context, I viewed the ruler as myself.
Okay.
Over the situation. So ruler, umpire, to me, had no difference in connotation, but I certainly see the perspective from Elizabeth's point of view. If you look at, say, our president and look on him unfavorably, or you look at dictators in the past and you look at and see the unfavorable aspects of their personality or their effect on the world, then of course ruler is going to have a very negative connotation. But I come from a sort of a fantastical literary background. I love fantasies where knights and Camelot and such. And the idea of an ideal ruler whose responsibility is to lend a perfect harmony within his castle or his lands is the ideal thought for me for a ruler. So it really doesn't bring a negative connotation for me personally.
Okay. Well, then we're back to the word let, because we're the one who have the choice of the peace coming into our hearts or that happening. So it's a little semantical, really, but sometimes it's just, for me, when I stop and I reflect on the different meanings of words and the way that different people take things, like you said, I love seeing it from all perspectives. Is there a difference in your mind between keeping the peace and letting peace? And I thought of that because I was thinking of all the different verses in scriptures that talk about peace, and the Beatitudes, when Jesus is doing the Sermon on the Mount, he says, blessed are the peacemakers, not blessed are the peacekeepers. And to me, those are two very different things. Stuart.
Peacekeeper is, to me, it's somebody imposing their idea of what peace is on you. And here again, it goes back to what we do at Jaya, where we let people make up their own minds and we don't impose upon them what we're thinking. But a peacekeeper is somebody who has an idea of what peace is and is going to impose that idea on others. Peacemaker is someone who facilitates what we do here, discussion, facilitates everybody being at peace in their own way.
Anyone else? Thought? Squash.
Oh, I love it. I would say it just breaks it down into the two different words, keep and make. Whereas keep is something to that doesn't involve progression. It stays where it is. And to make is an active verb that is trying to either improve upon something or create something new. So yeah, it's all about, for me, whether it is staying where we are or trying to move forward.
So, and I would think that keeping the peace is trying to control what's outside of me, and making peace or letting peace is controlling what's inside of me. And I think that's what I have the most control over. I think most of our struggles are when we battle against the chaos in our lives. There's so much, and right now, I mean, even more so, there's so much uncertainty. There's so much happening in our world today, and we're surrounded, in my mind, the way I visualize it is chaos. There's chaos everywhere. And so for me to make peace in the chaos, I'm struggling against the storm. For me to let peace or make peace in the chaos is to stay in the eye of the storm and allow the chaos to be. Because it just is. But it doesn't have to control my life. It doesn't have to, it's almost it's not almost, it is a detachment from the chaos. Allowing the chaos to be, not judging the chaos, it just is, and trusting that the chaos in the end, somehow, even though I don't see it, will fall into place. And so instead of things falling apart, I like to say, when we think that things are falling apart, they're probably actually falling together and allowing things to be. I said the idea of just riding the storm. I wanted to try an exercise, and I didn't plan on this. I was in the shower getting ready, and I thought, how can I choose peace in my life? Actually, that's a better question, and then I'll do something. How do you choose peace in your life? And this is a very personal question because I think we're all wired differently. And I'll share with you at the end how I choose peace. Elizabeth, how do you choose peace in your life or in your heart, whatever?
I think personally, I have a lot of anxiety, and because my mind is like buzzing at all times and is always churning and turning and questioning and doubting, I like physical peace around me. So I like to see things very minimal, like in their place, clean and organized, because then it helps me. It's like if I visually sort things, then I can mentally sort things.
Okay. You create the I by expanding your boundaries of what needs to be in order. Okay, that's cool. Anyone else? How do you create peace in your life?
When I was doing philosophy at school, there was, and the name is escaping me right now, but there's this treatise. Do you say like this short philosophical, what?
Treatise.
What he says about what you can and cannot control. And it's an entire philosophical book about what can be controlled or not. So to me, it's been a journey to learn that peace is coming from the moment I realize I cannot control this. Then I have to get myself out of that situation, out of this stress, or out of this controlling. And then the more I go through life, the more I realize there's not much I can control at all, except, as we're talking here often, for ourselves and our own beliefs and our own
Josh.
behaviors.
Control Josh, right?
Yes.
Ginger.
Excuse me. I just wanted to say that, I understand the major stress. I have 3 mortgages. I have, a vacant house. I have tenants who can't pay rent. I have 9 Airbnb cancellations, but I'm not stressed. No, I'm just kidding. I am a little stressed. I mean, that in some ways is, allows you to focus on other things like creativity, books, reading, if you can't, if you can do that, if you can manage to make the peace without, just realize everybody's going through the same thing. Everybody, not even just in this country, but in the whole world. So, if you're stressed about your bills and that sort of thing, it's not, people are not going to just cut you off in most cases. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you. And I think, if nothing else, I think that this pandemic has raised the awareness for most people, and that number is growing, that we're all in this together. And it's not just this, we're all on this planet together. And I think the more we can raise that awareness of harmony and oneness, which is kind of what we're talking about, the better it is. But there was, I go back to, you who are smarter than I as far as dates in history, the Olympics that were in China, I believe, that was quite a while ago. But their opening ceremony, I don't know if y'all remember that. I love the opening ceremony of the Olympics. And there were like these squares that were going up and down and creating pictures. And they come to find out it was not mechanical. That was all people working together in this beautiful synchronistic dance, if you will, of boxes. I mean, they weren't really dancing. They were just going up and down. But I just found that fascinating. But one of the scenes that they created was a rippling out effect. And I don't know if y'all remember that. And the commentator said that that was a representation of a philosophy of that peace starts from within and it ripples out from us. And I think we've somehow got it backwards and thinking that we, in the world, because we have a world of peacekeepers, and we're trying to enforce what we believe peace looks like for other people, but we don't have that in ourselves. So how can you create something that you do not have in yourself? And that's why I'm asking, how do you choose peace? The way I choose peace is, and I'd like you all to do it with me, just to see if it works for one person. Most of you will go, okay, yeah, he's crazy, and I don't know why we logged on. But that's okay. Everyone has the right to their opinion, even if they're wrong. So I want everyone, first of all, can everyone see Stuart? Okay, look at the shine on top of Stuart's head. See the sunshine hitting his head? Okay, I want you to remember that. I mean, that to me was like this perfect visual, and that's what reminded me of what I was thinking about this morning. Oh, wait, you can see it on mine too if I do this, right? Okay. I want everyone to close your eyes for just a moment, and I want you to visualize a warm, bright sun in the sky, and focus all your attention on that warm, bright sun shining on your face. And then take a deep breath and inhale that sunlight into your soul. And then exhale that sunlight to whatever is around you. And maybe do that once without me talking. So, did anyone experience a moment of peace in that sunlight passing through your body? You did, Stuart did, okay? Anyone else? That's it, just Stuart. Oh, Dennis did. Okay, Sheila did. Oh, that to me brings it down for me. I mean, I get what Elizabeth is saying about I need to have the order around me and I'm expanding my bubble boundary, if you will. And that's true. That's a reality of what we need to do. We need to expand that boundary of the eye of the storm. And I talked, Ginger talked about finding ways to remove the distractions, really is what you were saying. You know, the mortgage companies, we're all in this together. That's a way of methodically removing the distractions so that we can focus on who we are becoming. Those are all things that we do. And for me, they're important in creating peace in our lives because they create that environment for peace. in my life, the most important thing that I have, or the most important thing that I do, is stopping for a moment and just allowing the peace to flow through my body. And now for me, sunshine has always represented peace and presence. But you may be something else. Another good, I love the ocean as well. And it's that idea of just letting it happen, choosing to detach and let it rule our lives. Because so many times we allow the chaos, we allow the anger, we allow the things that we talked about last week that need to die. Once they've died, to remove the focus, we should then focus forward. You know, those are the things that are behind. Now focusing forward onto where we're becoming. And like Josh said, which I thought was really cool, is the idea of make is a forward momentum verb with making peace, letting peace. There's motion and movement there, not stagnant. I'm going to hold on to whatever I can hold on to so that I have some peace in my life.
I think at this present time, with, as you say, the chaos around us, is a good time for us to experience some sense of peace, because we don't have all the stuff that normally goes on, like school, work, etc. We don't have those things to worry about. We're in our houses and we're here basically alone. So even if we had negative people around us, negative ideas, negative thoughts, those are not here presently. You are in your home. And as Elizabeth said, your house might indeed be immaculate. Mine isn't, but
You have 3 dogs.
yeah, mine isn't. But it's that whole sense of being here alone and having that opportunity to do whatever I want. If I want to read, I can. If I want to look at a movie, I can. But whatever it is that I want to do, I can. That would make me enjoy me.
Well, you know, that you reminded me of Janetta. You know how Janetta talks about how she has a sign on her fence that says no drama zone?
Yes, she really does. I saw it.
And that's, you know, right now in quarantine, the only thing that's in your house, whether it be physically or emotionally or spiritually, is what you allow. And I think that's a great example of not carrying those things with us that we don't need to carry, and focusing on the things that, well, then we need to find what's important to us and what to focus on, the growth that we choose. I know that sometimes, but sometimes people feel, I see new faces. I love it. Hi, Carrie and Maxine and Anna.
I sort of want to, while we were talking about peace, the word sort of came to me, perception. And it seems that peace really is a facet of perception. We can look at our house and see it as messy. We can look at the world and we can see it as in chaos, and that makes us feel the chaos. We become a part of that chaos. We become a part of the disorder that we are now unhappy with. As you were saying, you know, with the sunlight, letting it be for even just a moment gives you that peace, because we change our perception. Instead of seeing it as messy, we just simply see it as it is, and we accept it as that. Some people have a house that they may be trapped in where it is not in any way a peaceful situation. They may be trapped with someone who is abusive, or they may be trapped in a circumstance where they needed a support system to keep from using drugs or things like that. So being alone is in no way a peaceful situation. So for those people, they need to find something perception-wise that brings them peace, that they can focus on, so that they can find that moment of, and maybe you equate peace with calm. But it's a stillness, something that allows you to just not feel the chaos. to me.
You gave me two little back chills, like glory bumps or whatever you want to call them. One is, I thought of what Scotty's always saying about removing the judgment, you know, because that's one of the issues that I believe comes from the creation story is we chose the knowledge of good and evil over the knowledge of God. And so we choose to place value on what's good and what's bad in everything around us. And when we remove that judgment and we stop being the center of the universe, that's where the perception comes in. And then one of my core beliefs is you become your focus. And that's exactly what you're saying. You will become the chaos that you focus on. That's why I think so many times in movements, whether it be a political movement or a social, whatever, a lot of times the people that are fighting for on the other side of it become fighting. They can't stop fighting because they're fighting against, and they become the focus of what they're fighting against instead of what they're fighting for. And it's not everyone. I'm just saying I've met people who can't stop focusing on what they're fighting against, and how different their lives would be if they were focusing on what they were fighting for. I'm not saying stop the fight. I'm saying change the focus. There's an old story that I thought of yesterday, and I wanted to just kind of reiterate the fact, but probably don't with this group, but just in case someone who may be listening, some people don't feel like they have a choice. And there's this old story about an elephant, or actually it's not an old story, it's the way they train elephants. Have you ever noticed with elephants that they don't have major stakes? A lot of times the elephants are tied to a stick that they could easily pull out, but they've been conditioned from being a small, as they grew, they had a stake that they could not pull out. And then the stake got smaller and smaller and smaller, and the elephant got bigger and bigger, but the elephant believes that it can't pull the stake out, so it doesn't even try. And that to me is a wonderful metaphor for the idea that we have forgotten that we have a choice. And I truly believe that we all have a choice, some choice. It may be between a rock and a hard place. So you've got a rock or a hard place, but one of them is a choice to go with. What did you want to say, Elizabeth?
Just from my psychology background, that the elephant staying in place is called learned helplessness. And it doesn't just apply to elephants. They've taken dogs and they put them in very tall pens they can't jump out of. And then eventually the pens get shorter and shorter to where the dog could step out, but they don't. And they've shown the same behavior, especially with children and in abuse cases, and where you're at first actually trapped, and then you have the ability to not be trapped, and you choose, well, you don't realize you're choosing, but your mind still puts you in a situation that you can't get out of, even though physically you can. But the psychology, like the actual term is learned helplessness. You have learned, the body has now made you think that you are helpless to the situation you're in, even though you're not. You can physically get out.
And that's the idea of whether, I believe that there are many people in this world that are victimized, and they, either by robbery or abuse or whatever, they're victimized. But we choose to be a victim. We choose to live in that victimization, if you will. And I'm not saying that, I'm not belittling the fact that something wrong has happened. That's not the point. The point is, I don't need to carry that something wrong with me. And that's a hard escape. And coming from someone who I've had a history of escaping being victimized, and I choose not to be a victim. Sometimes I'll still fall back into it. I noticed, and maybe it's all this alone time. Josh and I were talking about this yesterday. The idea of, for someone who's an introvert, alone time is not the best thing to encourage, because it speaks to a side of yourself that maybe you need to live beyond and live through. And I think sometimes the solitude will bring to the surface, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was struggling with this. And then the other alone time is yesterday I was cleaning out my notes, and it was actually a good reminder, flipping the coin a little bit. I was going through and reading all these things that I had written, poetry and prose and just thoughts, and I thought, wow, I have come a long way from where I used to live in my mind. Because sometimes we beat ourselves up too much and think we haven't gone as far as we should or could or whatever. Shoulda, coulda, woulda is worthless thought.
Ever since I was a child, when somebody would say, what is your goal in life? I'd say to be at peace. And somebody mentioned before about, this, I think it was you, Aloma, who talked about, having this time, and I love this time, but I also know about the bringing of things in. For me, it's the mail. And for me, one of the big things that I have struggled with is my car insurance got canceled. So I've had to be on the phone, calling people, trying to get this all handled without actually seeing somebody in person, which has been a really knowledgeable thing for me, because I see how much it takes my peace away from me just because I get the damn mail to come in and have to deal with it. So I just wanted to say how much I love this conversation and how much it is helping me remember what takes my peace away.
Does anyone have anything else to say? Because I have a closing, kind of bringing it to a close. Rory, of course.
Of course. No, I just wanted to point out, apparently we still are live on Facebook, although I'm over here, I'm showing that we're not. But I just wanted to tell you who some of the people on Facebook that are watching. Mel in St. Petersburg.
Hey, Mel.
And Anna, but she's jumped on now with us here. And Carrie also came on Facebook first and then joined us here. And we also have Tanisha Briggs.
Tanisha! Oh, awesome.
I miss her so much. And Rebecca Carlisle is on as well. So,
awesome. Okay. Well,
and also John.
Hey.
Hey, John. He just came on from Facebook.
Oh, there he is. All right. Thank you, John.
Hey. How's it going?
Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a long time.
I know it.
Okay, so I wanted to welcome everybody, and now I'm closing it down. But I wanted to, we're not taking up an offering, obviously, because we're not coming together. Although Roy did put a donate button on Facebook if you want to help support this. But I would rather close with a verbal offering. And I would love, if you feel comfortable, each person to say, well, actually, the one last thing is I believe in hope. And but we're talking about gratitude and kind of letting things be, and we're moving on into the idea of, I think letting things be starts with being grateful for what we have. And like Scotty talked about that, Aloma talked about that, we've talked about, yeah, we don't have this, or we're locked into this, but we do have the opportunity, we do have, well, in my case, I can only say what I have. I love my home. I love being here. I love the fact that Rory cooks for me every day. But we have things that we can be grateful for. So I would love to close this out with an offering of gratitude. Just say, I'm grateful for, and if you want to, say why you're grateful for it. Pick one thing that you're just grateful for, and then just lift it up. Okay, so first is Scotty.
I'm grateful for the fact that I can still walk, and that I go to the park every day and walk in the songbird habitat on the earth, and I love that. Thank you.
And who's next? Aloma.
Good health.
Your good health.
Yes.
There's an old Jewish blessing that may your life be filled with many troubles. And the idea behind it is if you don't have your health, then that's the only problem you have. But when you have your health, you have other troubles. So may your life be filled with many troubles, Aloma. Rory, what are you grateful for?
Technology. This is great that, I mean, we're all needing to stay at home and we're all able to be here. And to me, that's I'm grateful for that.
Dennis, what are you grateful for? No, we have to unmute you. Hold on. Start over, Dennis.
I'm grateful to have a wonderful person taking care of me while I'm down with this broken leg.
Amen to that. I see Troy and Elizabeth.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm just so thankful for, one, Elizabeth and the wonderful home that we have in spite of all this, and with all the just craziness going on. Just happy to be able to come home to a beautiful home, and then while I'm out, still have work in spite of everyone else, you know. And I'm very grateful to still be working, still provide, and to come home to a nice place.
I'm so grateful to be stuck in quarantine with someone who is so patient.
Well, now, Rory and I were talking about this. They've been saying that after the quarantine is over, we're probably going to see a rise in divorces and babies.
I hope so, because to give me a ring.
Hopefully it's not a divorce. I'm going to go. Carrie, you waved at 2. Okay, I gotcha. Oh.
I'm grateful that my son Nick found me.
Oh.
Having him in my life has brought a joy into my life that I haven't had in a really long time. And I'll get a text from him, and I'll be having a really bad day, and I'll see his text, and I'll smile. And so I'm grateful for Nick.
Good. And Clemence.
I'm grateful for being safe and feeling safe with Josh in this house, to have space and room. When I see my family, they've been now 3 weeks in hard confinement in France, in apartments, and some in very, very small places and with stressed people around them. So I'm very grateful to feel safe in a beautiful home. And hopefully we'll have option 2 at the end of this. Not option 1.
You will not have option 1. I know that beyond a shadow of a
The
doubt.
prayers coming for that.
I'll just piggyback on since we're already unmuted. I'm grateful to have somebody that I love very much to be able to share this with. I know not everyone has somebody in their house, and we have amazing pets as well.
Stuart.
Kind of trite maybe, but friends and community.
That's not trite at all.
This community that we're sharing today, and the good friends that I have that have been very supportive and helpful.
Cool. No, that's good. Shirley, I'm going to unmute you. Go.
I'm grateful I don't have children to homeschool.
I love you. Oh my gosh. Anyone else? Maxine, you wanted to say something?
I'm just thankful for everybody and to be alive, you know?
Amen. Amen to that. So, anyone else before we close up? Oh, Ginger.
I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful that you guys are doing it because it means a lot to me, being a part of the service. Only I wish it went to 1 o'clock today like it usually does. It just seems like so short. But also, I've been thinking to myself when I look around my place and it's just still chaotic, you know, like, everything needs to be painted. The doors are not on the hinges. The blinds are all torn up, and, boxes are still, I don't even know. I just found my hairdryer yesterday after 2.5 months. And, but I'm really, really grateful that I have this little place. I think it's so cool. I can see it finished, and I'm just grateful for that. I'm grateful that I have this because there are a lot of people who don't have a home, like my handyman has no home. So, that can be really dangerous. So I'm very, very grateful for that. We all have so much to be grateful for. Grateful that I'm well, safe and well too.
Rory sent up a text. I don't know if you all saw that on your screen. It said, stay after for social time. We're going to unlock all the mics and create chaos for everyone to connect and have conversation. It will be fun. But before we do that, if you will repeat after me, I will close out the formal portion if there's such a thing at Just As You Are. May the Lord watch between me and thee,
Me and
all
thee,
are absent
all absent
from the other.
from the other.